Hey, welcome to Main Pod Girl, a podcast made by Popheads for Popheads. Every episode will be diving into all kinds of pop culture topics with some of our favorite artists and music commentators. I'm your host, AJ Marks. And today's special guests are known for their timeless hit, That's Not My Name. They were nominated at the Grammys for Best New Artist, played with Travis Barker at the VMAs, and collaborated with Calvin Harris. Home, their first album in nearly 7 years, will be out everywhere by the time you listen to this. It's the Ting Tings. Let's start off with what we're listening to. I know that the album has been based around a lot of like Fleetwood Mac and Joni Mitchell, Dire Straits, but is there anything else that you've kind of been listening to recently?
Well, we just fully immersed ourselves for the past 4 years, really, in like soft rock, yacht rock, drum at sunset type music. So definitely a lot of Steely Dan, Christopher Cross, Toto Africa, America, so much.
Bread, Supertramp.
Yeah, all that amazing stuff that just doesn't age, really.
We never really not listened to that type of music.
Yeah.
We had it with us forever on tour and stuff. It was always our go-to kind of vibe. Even though we were sort of, especially on the first record, we were like more of an art punk setup. We still would secretly just get back on the bus and go striving off to even down to sort of like early Commodores and stuff. It's just like really old, cool music.
So this has kind of been a long time coming then, right? Like this has always been kind of a dream to do this kind of music. I know that it's obviously very different from where the Ting Tings project started sonically. And at one point you considered changing the band name along with the sonic change. So if you did change the band name, what would it have been?
Well, we did change the band name. We, so say 4 years ago, give or take, we had a baby, and we did not know what was going on in our lives. When you have a child, it's like, so we thought, how are we going to tour? How are we going to spend nights and days in studios without any responsibilities like we'd had before, and just pack our bags and go and live in Berlin or LA like we've done many times. And when you've got a little baby, that's different and changes everything. So we decided that we weren't going to chase the idea of making a record for the Ting Tings or putting on a new tour or all those things that come with the band. So we decided to change our name to DiMartino and White. And we did the logo, the current Ting Tings logo, we created as DiMartino and White, which was inspired by the Carpenters. And we stuck that on a board. We were living in London while Katie was pregnant, and we stuck it on a board, and we just looked at each other and said, you know, all our favorite bands that we love, let's just stick those on a mood board and just look at them every day. And so we just like got from Eric Clapton all the way, all those bands we mentioned, Steely Dan, Dire Straits, Fleetwood Mac, Bread, Supertramp, blah, 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 blah. And we just kind of cut out pictures that we found of them or printed them from Google, and we just stuck it on a wall. And waited for this baby to come along, and just kept looking at these pictures. And we had a piano in the room, and we had all our old like acoustics and our bass and our amp. We had
Fender Rhodes. Which is important because it sets that kind of mood of those that it was played all over those type of songs. Yep. So you can't play Fender Rhodes and write any song but something that sounds like late 70s soft rock. It's just impossible.
Yeah. And right next to you, you can't see it. Maybe. Can you see any of that?
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Great setup.
Yeah. So saying that next to you, we've got like a big tape machine and a big audio desk and stuff. And so we had all that set up, and we just started to write on the piano, on the acoustic, on the Rhodes, and just cruise. We just like didn't think about things. We just thought about us as writers.
And so coming back to the name, you landed back on the Ting Tings
like a week before we put out our first social post. So we literally had a DiMartino Instagram set up, a Ting Tings like one, and we was like, do we not? And the main reason for doing it back with the Ting Tings was that we'd really made our minds up that even though we feel like this record we're very proud of this record, and the reaction it got amongst people we know and people within the industry was so nice, but we just really wanted to do it independently. And we thought, why would we take any like power, you know, if there's 1% of people that recognize the Ting Tings name as in this super fast scrolling world, why would we like throw that away? And also we were really proud of our first record, the record that most people know us by. we're super proud of it. I won't say we would make that type of music now because we're 16, 17 years older. And
It was just like an umbrella. We created DiMartino and Wyatt. We were having a baby, family was starting, and we were writing songs under that umbrella, and it was free. And we weren't the Ting Tings. We weren't going to go on tour. We were having a baby, all that stuff was happening. And so as more we wrote, the more it stuck for the period of time of going through the writing, let's say, and demoing. It was the right thing to do because we weren't touring, we weren't promoting, we weren't thinking about touring and promoting. At some point, we thought about maybe we're just going to write songs and send songs out. You know what I mean? I don't know. It was only when we were closing in on the production or the finishing mixes or something like that that we were both looking at each other going like, this is a hot album, this is really amazing, and this is us.
I'm ready to go through that slight pain barrier of being an artist and like putting yourself out there, because it is like a big deal when it's, if you're an artist yourself, it's not just like a product that you make that you can then go and sell. It's you, and it's a roller coaster for like years, and getting reviewed and putting yourself on stage, and we've been in and out of that roller coaster for 20 years as a band. Jules Moore bands before the Ting Tings. So did we want to take that on again? So yeah, I think we felt ready, didn't we? Once the album was done, we was like, no, we can put ourselves out, and maybe in a slow way and in our own weird little lane. And I don't know where that slow lane's going to take us, because we're not in that fast paced, like super fast world of a new song every 2 weeks, content that's got to go viral constantly. We're really not, and we don't want to be. But I think maybe we just stay in our lane. An audience will find what we're doing and like it.
I love the attitude that y'all have in interviews and when talking about your music and when talking about like, this is the dream, playing all these shows, touring all over the world, even just staying in your lane and being like, this is what I'm happy doing, and I don't know. But I want to circle back to making the album and having it be a part of you. We're recording this the day before your first album in 6 years comes out. And I often talk about this with artists. When a body of work is like out to the public, it doesn't just belong to you anymore. So what does it feel like for you, like in this precious time, this last day, when this is just your baby?
The correlation between I will answer your question, but I think this has something to do with it. I think the correlation between the first album and the fifth album, this one, is really similar. One, because on the first record, we were naive, we were entering into something unbeknown, and we were hurt. So we had a lot to say. We were dropped by a label, we felt damaged goods, we didn't think we were worthy, we were finished. And we came out of a situation where we thought we just started our career. And by being dropped by a label and just two of us sitting in Manchester going like, oh, now what do we do? We had a lot to say, even though we probably didn't understand what we were saying on That's Not My Name fully. We had a lot of emotion coming out of us because we were pretty, I guess, terrified, upset, distraught. Katie remember saying at 21 she thought her career was over.
So we've been signed and dropped, and obviously you're the least hottest band in the world when you've just been dropped. I remember like, oh, that kind of came and went quick. That's it, career done.
Yeah.
With all those emotions, we went into, without saying we're going to write an album about this, we went into that process of finishing that first part of that record, let's say, which is We Started Nothing, with all those emotions attached. And of course, somewhere in that process of getting towards the end of album one, we were doing some little shows, we started getting our shit together, and people were going, wow, this is really good. And then it all kind of started to make sense again. And then we started feeling a bit more confident, and we finished the album, and the rest is history on that first record. On this fifth album, we were going through COVID, as everybody else was, locked in, not touring, not being very productive to a degree, having a child, or being productive in another way, maybe. Having a child, going into the unknown about how are we from, like I said, having no responsibilities, traveling and living where we want to be parents. There was something so real about having a child. Like, oh shit, this is no joke, no joke anymore. There's no, I can't face the press today, or I don't want to do this gig, I've got a sore throat. You know what? This bullshit, this new record, that doesn't count having a child. Everything counts. Yeah. So that happening, us starting to write around that, living in London in COVID, being locked down, dealing with the fact you don't see parents and all the family and everything. They were the two out of 5 albums we wrote. Those two records have come from the most honest, I guess, most terrifying moments of our lives in two different ways. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think they, as writers,
A
I
lot of
think,
emotion near the surface.
yeah, I think we can honestly say, because we've written 5 albums, we know what it felt like to write album two. We know what it felt like to and record album two and record an album, write album three, and the same for album four. We knew what we were going through. I remember all the scenarios we were going through for all those records. But the first and this fifth one feel very similar in terms of they really came from a deeper, uncontrollable place. It wasn't something you could just get a piece of paper and a guitar or a keyboard. I've got this idea, it's really cool. It was much more profound than that.
But how does it feel it coming out tomorrow then?
Well, the same as the first record. It's kind of like not a relief, but I feel kind of confident. I
Mm.
know it sounds weird, like the first record, it had written itself to a degree, and now we were listening and I can't wait for everybody to hear what's happened through the process of making a record on that first one. And now what's happened from based on record on the fifth album. We can't wait for people to hear what we've just been through in the songs.
As well, I feel like we've been so off radar. It's almost been difficult to get people to listen to the album to be like, no, it's really good, just listen. They're like, it's just not on their radar. So it will be really nice finally when the album as a whole is listened to and hopefully like word of mouth, if it's strong enough and people will start talking about how they've enjoyed it. Because we always felt like half of us just a year ago just want to just release the album and then let that kind of do the work, let the songs do the talking. And then there's this structure that you're supposed to do of singles and building. But actually, we just wanted our records to be heard. I feel like that's where it's going to be its strongest.
But
So,
I never felt we felt that for the second, third, and fourth album.
no.
I don't think we were on the eve of any of those records going, can't wait for people to hear this. We were full of trepidation, like most artists are when they're putting a record, oh
Yeah.
God, I don't even think I like this. Whereas I'm quietly not confident. I don't really care because I know it's good. It feels good.
Yeah, it made us feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you released it at the perfect time, or you're going to release it at the perfect time. It's like the start of summer. I mean, at least for the Northern Hemisphere, it's like that is too many summer albums are released at the end of August, and I'm always like, why? So this is awesome. This is music that I can go around and like just enjoy the sun, like driving around in my car. And I think people are responding to that. I mean, obviously, like good people do bad things, like top 10 on the TikTok music charts. Like that's not nothing, right? Like that people are getting that, like you were saying, Katie, like people are responding. It's like that word of mouth is going around.
People were best because when like the industry was almost like not interested, like who from when, like that's they make this type of music, that's it.
Mm.
And it feels like people are responding, which is making we've had like 2 emails today from record labels, haven't we? And we're like, that's fun. Like people that you can't get like even an answer from an email from like 6 months ago, and you feel like, oh, okay, it's because real people are responding to it, which is the best way. It always is.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only people that matter at the end of the day are the people who are going to be buying the music, going to be showing up to the shows. And also, it's like people don't care about genres as much as they did 17 years ago. You know what I mean? They really don't. Everyone listens to every genre now because of things like Spotify. And nostalgia is also so in. So I feel like That's Not My Name is the gift that keeps on giving, right? Have you been able to anticipate its ability for like endless syncs and TikTok trends, or does it always like surprise you when it rears its head and suddenly has another resurgence?
Well, it's not stopped really since our first album of like being used somewhere in the world at all times, whether it be like an AT&T commercial in Mexico, a Coca-Cola commercial, or
Mhm.
yeah, in a film. It's just always used. And it's funny now because I think like indie sleaze is coming back in.
Yep.
And we can see like a few younger artists have been in touch, and you know that they want us to write with them, but they want to That's Not My Name. And you're like, oh, I don't really want to sit trying to write songs like that. We're in such a different place.
Uh,
But it's just interesting to see that you can feel people want that attitude.
That's so interesting because I have always wondered with people who are really kind of like wanting to tap into the sounds that inspired them 10, 15 years ago, like when things are happening in a revival. I always wonder if like they go to the people who are at the forefront of those sounds and go like, hey, come into the studio. But I get where you're coming from too, because you're like, we're on a different planet right now.
I mean, we could do that, but it's not as exciting as what we're doing. And I remember like we was in Tokyo, I think, and Tom Tom Club and Talking Heads were a big inspiration on us in our first album. And we was like, oh, it was just amazing to like meet bands that we loved their songs and their sounds. And we did talk with them. We never got around to it, but we did talk about maybe we go to their house in Connecticut and we do some recording with them in the studio. And yeah, it's a nice thing. It's a nice acknowledgement, isn't it? But I feel like we can't not write this type of music at the minute. It's so in our veins, and it feels so comfortable to us. I can't see us moving too much away from this genre, really.
Yeah, and I still think I'm terrible at genres. My record collection has always been so kind of like broad. But I don't see a massive, like Dreaming, for example, which is the single that's been blowing up on TikTok for us. And I don't see there's a massive difference between that and That's Not My Name. I mean, I know obviously being that we recorded it and produced it, that I know we used different drum techniques and we used different guitars and there was a different process to the recording. But from a distance, when you kind of hear That's Not My Name from a distance, I'm not talking about people that got into it and become fans, but when you just kind of like it flies past you, That's Not My Name. It's a texture that you immediately kind of go like, oh, there's some summer in it, there's some vibe in it, there's some freshness in it. It feels like it's coming from somewhere just a little bit different to everything else. It sits up a little bit. It's kind of giving it its hallmark for 15 years.
It makes it more difficult at radio sometimes to get it on because it's just to the left or right of what's mainstream at the time.
And I think Dreaming is similar, even though it's completely different genre of music. I think when Dreaming comes along and you hear it, a lot of people we're seeing on TikTok are playing it in their cars and they're kind of going, Dreaming. There's something that it's got a similar type of button it presses. It's a different genre of music, but there's a texture or it's almost like, when you smell gasoline or petrol in a garage and you go, I like that. It's something you like. I know it's something you like about it. And I think,
well, it's because it comes from Earth. Like we do everything ourselves, write and produce it. So it's never like, oh, it's the sound of a producer that we've taken on, which it's because it's from us.
Yeah, but I think this record and the first record have that connectivity more than the second, third, and fourth. I think there's things in this record when I hear them in the distance, they remind me, even though they don't sound like the same as the first record. There's this thing it makes me. I see someone posting Dreaming, we see it, and someone goes, look, there's two girls in the car, and it's going Dreaming. And it reminds me of when people were posting That's Not My Name, if that makes sense. It kind of just feels like a same mood. It's not, but I think I think it's connectivity. I think people, so much choice, and all of a sudden things happen and they're driving, they hear something, go, oh yeah, and then they take a video of it and they go, wow, this is it. And I think that's what this record has, like the first record.
Yeah. So like people are connecting in the same way as they were before. Yeah, I can agree with that. I'm definitely connecting. That's Not My Name is one of the songs that my dad and I will always reference in conversation. And I'm a bit afraid to ask and like ruin the mystery, but what is the song actually about? Because I've like over the years had so many different interpretations of what this song is about, and I'm curious.
I'll take that one. The little one for a minute. Myself, Jules, and another guy, we were in a band together called Dear Eskimo, and it was a bit trip hoppy at the time, like early 2000, well, like 2005, 2006 trip hoppy vibes. We'd played a little show in Manchester called In the City, and we'd managed to get ourselves a record deal. So at like 2021, we got signed to Mercury Records, and we was like only a little deal, like a little development deal. But then the two bosses that signed us after say 6 or 7 months got sacked and two new ones came in, and you could just feel like we weren't their project. We were some old project that's now hanging round. And then they like dropped a load of bands and we thought, okay, we're going to get dropped. And they didn't. They left us like sitting there for like a year, just in like limbo, and then dropped us. And it was so funny because they hadn't even like checked in to see what songs we'd written. And we'd started to, our band had like, so as soon as they dropped us, our band disbanded. The other guy went off, Simon went off to get on with his life. And myself and Jules, we was living in this old cotton mill in Manchester that was full of artists. So there was like 40 artists live workspaces. And we'd been living there for like 5 years at that point. And it was just, it came out within like a few weeks of getting dropped, like just pure frustration and like nothing to lose. We honestly didn't feel like we had anything going for us. So maybe it's that weight off your shoulders where you're not trying to impress. It's just expression. Bands like Talking Heads with David, but it's pure like, noise and expression. And as we wrote it, it gave me goosebumps. And I was like, wow, this, like, especially when we were performing it to our friends in our living room, they were like, wow, it's so electric how we perform it. And the record is, as part of like the drums change, like Jules's kind of drum pattern, like 3/4 of the way through. It's just like this exhilarating feeling. But weirdly, we were in quite a dark place. So we was driving to Spain to visit Jules's family, and he got to Spain, he caught the flu, accidentally killed his nan with the flu. And then we was driving back, and he was like dark as anything. He's like, oh my God, I've turned up to our family. We're bums. We've been dropped by a label. We've got no money. We've got babies taken away. Like, we had this Roland Space Echo. We had to get rid of that. We had to pay off accountants and stuff from our record deal. And anyway, we was having a bit of a rough time. But on the way back, Jules was like, this is terrible. This is like, he was so dark. He thought the song was terrible and we were rubbish and we should just quit what we're doing and end music. So it's two completely different feelings about the song at the time. I feel like it gave me goosebumps. And he was like, he's so gone in his head at that point. It's kind of like, at the time, at the mill where we lived, there was a lot of like lesbian club nights on. So there was a lot of like the Gossip at the time, La Tigra, like all like these feminist like punk bands. And I'd grown up listening to the Spice Girls, and we both have a pop sensibility about us in our writing. And it was almost like, as a vocal delivery, I grew up listening to the Spice Girls, but really wanted to sound like La Tigra or someone like that, and ended up somewhere in the middle, and then obsessed with David Burns and Blondie. So that kind of delivery. So yeah, it's we're super pleased with that song because it's an empowering song written at a time when we felt very unempowered, really.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but it references the change from Dear Eskimo and the band name change.
No, That's Not My Name. It's just about feeling awkward and invisible and forgettable, and people just kind of prejudging you or writing you off. So They Call Me Hell was my sister's name. Stacy was a girl that I always got mistaken for at school.
Oh, okay.
And then in the second verse, it's talking about, I miss the catch if they throw me the ball. I'm the last one standing up. I'm always that kid that doesn't get picked. I get picked last for sports, and just like an awkward.
It's like a forgettable. You're always
forgettable, awkward person. That's what we felt like.
That's how we felt coming away, being dropped from a label and having no future. We just felt like, and also no one was picking up the phone. We were trying to get gigs, and it was over. That Dear Eskimo moment was over. But it was in hindsight, it was the very beginning.
See, that's fascinating to me because, like, again, over the years, I've thought about it so many different ways, and I also thought like someone could like roll up and like do an interpretation of the song. It feels like ripe for some sort of interpolation where someone's like, don't call me honey, don't call me beautiful. Like, that's not my name. Like, I'm. I have a like it could be like feminist twists in that way. Like there are just so many different ways to go with it, and then that's obviously why a bunch of actors were just like, these are my past roles. That's not my name.
Well, in the play, that Are You Calling Me Darling? Are You Calling Me Bird? In the UK, it's just a very like, all right, darling, all right, bird. It's like a very and it did have that like feminist, like, fuck you, don't call me darling, don't call me bird, don't write me off as like.
Okay, so I wasn't pulling that out of nowhere. Okay, awesome.
It's a mixture of emotions. It's like coming from frustration, feeling forgettable, but trying to finding strength in the song, and then obviously listening to a lot of like the Tigra and the Gossip and bands like that, and finding like, I want to be like you, and
And also, That's Not My Name is almost saying I have a name.
Yes,
because Kate is saying, call me Stacey. That's not my name. What she's actually saying is that I have a name. No one's calling me by my name.
The awkward person in the corner that doesn't say much is, you don't just write them off. They can have like a volcano inside of them, and you just don't know it till like you kind of peel it all off.
And you had the volcano. If someone were to do an interpolation of that song, like, would you guys be open to that? Do you have any like thoughts on how like frequent that happens now, how frequently that happens?
We would be fine with it. I think the problem is it's really hard to do. I think when you take like I don't know how old it is now, 17 years old, we didn't know we were writing a song that was going to last this long. We didn't know that the song was going to be that powerful to so many people, and just for the test of time, it's been used consistently around the world on syncs, whether it's TV ads or films or blah, blah, blah. And I think if you take a legacy song or a song that's stays around for that long, the reason they stay around for that long, and there's lots of them. It's not just our track. Obviously, there's loads of big tracks like this. Is because they have something quite unique about the way they were made, and it's not something you can copy, or there's no formula to that. As writers, there's no
The imperfections make it perfect.
yeah, it's like, you go through your writing career and there are all these different things that are happening, like I said, in the new album pushing us, and there's moments of magic that are happening on this new, and that piece of magic on that first record, That's Not My Name, creates this mood and creates this sensibility in the record. And then 15 or 17 years later, it just keeps standing up. It keeps standing up. It's never driven out of the system by the new wave of music. It's not, it stands up every year or every time. When you have a record like that, it's very hard to do an interpretation of it. So I'll give you an example. I can't remember, a certain point in our career, one of our favorite artists or tracks, Talking Heads, David Byrne, and
Once in a Lifetime.
Once in a Lifetime was one of our favorite all-time tracks. Very inspiring track for us while we were going through the process of that first record. And then one day, many years later, David Byrne, for a project that they were doing, I think for charity, I can't remember.
Paul McCartney would pick an artist, David Byrne would pick an artist to cover their songs.
Asked us to do a cover of Once in a Lifetime, which immediately we were like, oh my God, one of our favorite artists, one of our favorite songs. It's an absolute yes. We want to do it. We were actually in London on a break and we had a really small window to do it, but we moved things around so we could stay in a studio all day to put down a version of Once in a Lifetime. And within 4 hours of trying it, we realized that that was the biggest mistake we were doing, of trying to do an interpretation of a song that for us it was impossible to do an interpretation of. And we wrote back that afternoon to everybody that was asking us to do it, the agents, the managers and everything, and we said we can't do this
because his vocal delivery is so unique. Like, you either copy it, I mean, a good thing I saw recently was when Miley Cyrus did Psycho Killer, and she took it off a completely different way, but it's still touching. It's so hard to, because it's such about the non-perfect vocal delivery and the restrictions he has in his vocal, and so he has to like somewhere else in the performance to like deliver. It's just a weird thing. You're almost like stealing his character by just singing it.
Be interested to find the stats on those big tracks. How many people are doing covers or interpretation of it? I think on those big tracks, I think less than you think, because they're hard to pull off. And not only are they hard to pull off, it's like nobody's got the space, because everybody's still listening to the front one. They're still listening to the original. You don't get a look in, and someone's going to waste their time doing something because they think they're going to have some success with this cover. And it often doesn't happen. So I think that we haven't had a lot. I don't remember we've had a handful of people asking if they could do a version of it.
Dizzy Rascal, who was like a UK artist, he did like a cover of it on like a radio, and it picked up a little bit, but not much. But he did like They Call Me Rude Boy, and it was kind of, he did something. And I remember hearing like everybody tried to say, and that's quite good actually, but apart from that, we've not really had it. No. We had a lot of artists recently, the past couple of years, being like, you guys open to writing, and they kind of want that from us. We know it.
Yeah, to answer your question, we're up for it. We've never been against the idea. I mean, someone just has to do it, and we hear it and go, that's hot, man, that's great, and we'd endorse it. But it doesn't come often, and I think it's because the same reason when we go to do an uptake of something, if it's a big track for us, it's scary. You get into it, you go, oh, why are we trying? We're butchering our favorite track.
Yeah, you're awesome. Like you remind me so much of my friends who like are all about the art, right? But also so knowledgeable about the business side of things. You've been there and back. You know all the ropes, right? You have your own label now. You're writing and producing this all entirely yourself. But at the end of the day, it's like, what makes us feel good? Like, what is the most artistically fulfilling thing that we can do with our music? And I love that.
Life's short. You got to do what you love.
Exactly. There's this song, my favorite song of yours, Soul Killing, that I I want to talk about it so bad. I've been waiting this whole time, very patient to talk about it. It uses that like, is that like a supposed to be like a rocking chair, or is it like a door, a creaky door? That's the percussion.
It's a squeaky chair.
From the
Okay, good.
studio.
Okay, good. Because I thought
You're
so.
right. It's on it. We were in Berlin.
Yeah.
And we set up the studio, and the chair we had in the studio, the control room chair. Again, we built loads of studios. We moved to Berlin and we built the studio.
Hmm.
And we had a chair that it had that little soft pullback bit on it where you kind of didn't go back, but it kind of just went back enough to relax when you sat back. And every time you did, they went, and so you'd be rocking in it. And we were like, that's got that. We had the dunk on the track, and I just put a microphone down. And I rocked it in time, and then that was that sound.
Okay, so it wasn't a sample. It was like you. I love that. Okay, that's all I wanted to know. I love the genius production details in that song. Chef's Kiss. I've played it like hundreds of times over the years, and I wasn't sure if there was anything else that like anything else to the story of how that all got produced and set up.
That's one of my favorites as well. I remember we've carried that for a long time. I played it loads, and I always wished it had got a little bit more hearing,
Mm.
from the people out there. People that do like it, funny enough, like yourself, I've written to us many times going, this track is my soundtrack every year. And I get that. I mean, I'm not bigging the track up, but I get that personally. I love that track. I just love the rhythm section of it. I just like the fact that we were probably getting caught between a bit of Beastie Boys, not that that's a Beastie Boys track, but
Mm.
on that album,
Yeah.
been to New York and we'd done the whole Beastie Boy thing. We got back to Berlin and we were like, right, we want to get this kind of brazened, harsh, raw, not hip hop because we're not hip hop, but we want to find something. And then at the same time, we were getting this kind of ska
Well, they're a bit like
reggae thing.
Malcolm
Malcolm
McLaren.
McLaren,
It's a big influence on our first album. I think we wanted to lean more into that on our second album, which
Mm.
was all that double Dutch kind of, yeah, it's kind of bratty, but with like a bit of soul in the rhythm.
And that's where like the intro kind of comes from.
Yeah, and it's got all that going on. And then we thought that was going to be like a lead track.
Mm.
Uh, and it just never materialized, really. It
That
never.
was going through a kind of, we put out Hands with Columbia, and then you just felt that it didn't do as well as they wanted. And we were still not finishing the record because we'd been on tour. And then you just felt it all go like cold.
But this is what is important in hindsight, because this hindsight is always a wonderful thing. You just mentioned Soul Killing.
Hmm.
In our mind, so we were still signed at that point. We were living in Berlin and we were going through the difficult second album. We've always been a bubble band, and when we signed and had all that success, it was strange. What was strange about it is had like 10 people in the kitchen all of a sudden who thought they knew, or maybe they did, about what we should do next. And yet, pre that moment, we made records ourselves. We lived in Manchester, we threw parties, and the whole thing blew up based around the records that we were making at the beginning. Got played on underground radio, got popular. It was only record labels only move in when you're hot. You know what I mean? And we were on the second record and then Soul Killing. We were like, this is hot. This is going to be, this is going to be something. And the problem is with the industry is no one has any vision anymore. They're just scooping off the top all the time. And sometimes, like this record here, because we are in control now, we just put the records out we want. And what happens when you do things you want? People respond because you're the artist that's got
Not
this thing, and
diluted.
people respond to artists having something to say. They
Mm.
really do, but the industry gets in the way in the middle because you've got artists saying, I've got something to say, and then you've got the industry going, like, we've got to clean this up, we've got to make it make sense, we've got to put it in a hole. And then by the time it gets to the audience, it's just like this kind of fodder of nothing really got any identity anymore. Back in the day in the 70s, Bohemian Rhapsody is 11 minutes old. Who puts a record out that's 11 minutes long?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That was the beautiful thing about records years ago. And now you're like 2 minutes long, it has to fit in the gap, it has to do the thing radio wants it to do, it has to.
We had a bit of trepidation actually with Good People Do Bad Things, didn't we? Because we weren't actually looking to even present it to radio in the UK because it's independent and we're going, right, what do we focus on? We can only focus on certain things. And then a prominent radio plugger in the UK was like, I can get this on radio. But then It was literally like if we cut the song in half and cut all the beautiful guitar solos out, and it was just like that's like half the song gone. Like, and it's just like it literally made me tearful. So I was like, how can we just cut our song in half to get it on the radio? Because then it's not even got a middle eight because we left that free for a guitar solo, and it's such a weird thing. And then we was like, you know what? That's not going to work for us. Let's not pursue chopping our songs up to get on radio. They are what they are.
And
Now with online, it's better.
Yeah.
People, they find themselves anyway.
Exactly.
yeah,
I mean, everyone on Popheads is always talking about how songs need that middle eight. They need that bridge. They're like, where is it? And why has everyone neutered the bridge?
They say, oh, you need this format for radio, or they won't play it. It's like, well, I can't play it then. That's it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we an insight to That's Not My Name. So this is nothing about being geniuses. We just logically think about this, right? We make a first record, it gets hot, everyone starts talking about it's made in our studio, made by our minds, made by our emotions.
stood by our friend for £25. Like, it's so DIY.
Yeah, so we do record ourselves, and our friend masters it on laptop for 25 quid. And then we get hot, and then record label signs out and mixed by disco. I won't mention names, and we're driving around in a van doing gigs in the UK at the time, and the record going to Radio 1, which is a big station in the UK, and then everyone's saying, yeah, we're going to be a big band. And then, and then we're in a van and it sounds crap. The record sounds absolutely shit. And I'm driving because gave our crew a night off, and we were driving across the UK, listening to it on Radio 1. It's just starting to get played. That's Not My Name. It sounded really terrible. So we phoned up our manager going like, this sounds absolutely shit. And they said, yeah, funny you should say that. It's not testing very well at Radio 1, so I'm pulling it off.
But it had been maybe being played like for a month on there and different like spot shows and having huge reactions. So the new mix,
So I'm
not responding well.
Huh.
That's what I'm getting to.
Clarifying it.
Yeah, that's what happened. I don't know where I am now in that story.
So what happened then? How we had to like swap it out?
Yeah, on Radio 1, which is the mainstream radio, it wasn't sounding very good to us. So we called it in saying, this doesn't sound right. And then the management said it's not testing well, so that's over. So that our main single on the first record was dead. It wasn't testing well, it was coming off, and we didn't have that was the end of really the Ting Tings, and it hadn't even started.
Because of the mix.
Because the record label had done some work, and I won't mention names, but people had got involved mixing it and doing some work.
Super vocal heavy, so there was no melody under it. It was just me shouting "That's Not My Name" for like 4 minutes with no musicality, not much underneath.
The mix was shit. The mix didn't make sense because the soul in what we'd done from artist's point of view, the message got lost. So we said to our manager, dude, we said this was going to happen when you start mixing it with people. You've lost the soul in the record. I wish we'd just have gone with our original recording.
Yeah.
And our manager phoned up the radio station and said, you're playing the wrong mix. And the radio station said, well, this is the mix the label sent us. And then our manager went, no, you got the wrong one, and sent them our mix, the original record that we recorded at home in our own studio. And 1 week later, we went number one.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It's been the story of our life. We live by this rule, and the music industry it's very hard to do what we're doing, and we don't say to artists that they have to be this headstrong or this mind strong, because sometimes you have to listen to, management, or there are people that make sense. It's not us saying they don't make sense, but the nature of the way we work and the way we record and the way we put things together, they have to fail sometimes. Failure is key in an artist. You have to put stuff out. You have to see the breaks, because in that is gold. That's where the real shit is. It's not in the perfection, the beautiful production, the best. Even the best producers and the best mixers make terrible mixes that go number one, because the identity is on the soul is in the track. And the minute you iron that out, because the purpose is to create something that fits, you've lost your hit, you've lost your track. It happens so many times. When we feel a track in our studio, we're not going, oh, we've got a hit record. We feel it. It's in our core. It's in our DNA. We're getting something. And as long as we're getting something as artists, then we have a message to people. The last 2 months we've been writing, we're getting something. Now we want to show it to you. Imagine that mood we're getting. By the time we show it to you, it changes again. It's like, that's not the message that we had 2 months ago when we were in the studio going, dude, we're writing something. We've got
And
something. We
that's probably
feel
that
something.
untangible connection with certain songs that you have, and some are so perfect, and but you know they might be a hit, but you don't massively feel connected to them. It's funny. It's almost like the untangible and the things you can't really put your finger on.
Yeah.
Even like live, how we used to perform from our first album onwards was with loop pedals, but we'd never just have like a beat playing that we played along to. We just couldn't, could we? Because it felt like
Live.
stale. So he kept triggering constantly on the loop pedal, which made it move. So it felt very human. And the audience don't know. We've not told them that we've changed one, like we play, like maybe tried it for 2 weeks with just like a click track or anything. But there was a massive difference in how they responded. So they feel it.
They feel it immediately. And then as we got bigger, it's the same, I guess what we're saying is the same message throughout our career. The same thing when we started to get to bigger stadiums and shows. Everybody was saying to me personally, you need to buy a new drum kit. I was using a mini drum kit. It kicked ass. It was a 16-inch kick. It was a junior drum kit basically. And I double rimmed it and pulled it to pieces and I made this thing ring. It sounded amazing. And then a year in on tour, this little kit I kept taping it up and mending it because it was getting more and more broken. And everyone's like, you need a new kit, dude. Yeah, man, everybody wants to give you drums. Get some new drums, get some new drums. At the same time, production, get some lights, get some this, get some that. By the end of that process, Katie would be like 50 foot away from me on stage with lights, and I'd be lights over here. And we started to fall apart because the energy we have when we're close, I'm on the drums and Kate's punking out on guitar. She jumps on my little podium and she hits a cymbal and my little kit goes flying off the stage. And this kind of scrappy affair was the Ting Ting. It's what people were going like, damn, I saw a show tonight was fucking knocked me out. The minute you go, right, Katie, you've got to go over there with the string shannon, and Jules over here with your drums, and then we have a count, and then when the light goes green, you've got to come under the light, play the guitar. The show was over. It was like people paid their money, go, yeah, it was a cool show. I really enjoyed it. But it wasn't as good as when we were like going bang and just getting out there. So a year in, we just said to our crew and our management, like, we're not doing any of that. Just get rid of all those lights. Get rid of it. No one could understand what we were thinking. And literally, we were able to tour that first record for 4 years non-stop. And it kicked ass every single night. We were soaking wet. We came off stage feeling like we had run a marathon and won every single time we played a show.
I love that. Like the story of the band and all the ups and downs is so beautiful. And I feel like I've learned so much and just on this podcast episode of like, I'm gonna have so much more to think about when I listen to all these songs, when I listen to the new album, especially. And I'm really excited about where this is heading. And it's kind of awesome that this lifelong dream of making an album like this is going to be out tomorrow. Like, that's awesome. And congrats, I have one more game for you before we go. This is a new game I've decided to usher this in just for this episode called Know Your Wiki. So I'll ask you a few multiple choice questions about your own Wikipedia page, and we'll get to see how much you know about yourself.
I remember years ago, someone changed it that Jules was a writer for George Michael and that I grew up in a pig farm. This was years ago. And then I tried to change it. And then Wiki banned me from vandalism. And I was trying to change. It was like, it's about me. It's my name, even if it's not my name on. Yeah, it's funny.
Go for it.
So I've not actually seen it for years. So this is going to be interesting.
Oh my God. Well, it doesn't say anything about a pig farm. Okay, so the first question, which of these sections shows up on your Wikipedia? Is it A, exposure, B, controversy, C, influences, or D, tours?
Tours.
Influences.
No, it's neither of those. It's exposure.
Oh, really? In what?
I think influences maybe on your personal, because you each have your own Wikipedia page, but I think the band Wikipedia page, it's just exposure, which I thought was interesting. The next one is, which of these bands/groups are not mentioned anywhere on your Wikipedia page? Is it A, Toto, B, Spice Girls, C, Blur, or D, Blink 182?
Blink-182 and
182.
Blur, I would say, but
Yeah,
yeah.
Blur, Blink-182.
Blur is not mentioned anywhere. Blink-182, I think it's because
Oh, they
it's
mentioned.
Travis
Oh,
Barker.
yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, because you play with Travis Barker at the VMAs, right? So next one is which of these genres are you listed as? A, ska, and you have like 5, by the way, but this is just which of these made it into the 5? A, ska, B, dance punk, C, country pop, or D, electro pop.
Ska.
That's not going to be mentioned.
In our music?
You think we sound like a ska band?
I've seen it quite a lot.
Really? The last thing in the world I would think anyone would call our band.
Dance pop then.
So you're both going with dance punk?
Dance
Yeah,
punk,
dance punk.
maybe from our most known album, yeah.
Yeah.
But like our last one was us screaming over drum and bass, so it depends. Literally depends what album.
Dance punk.
So yes, you're correct. Dance punk was one of the few mentioned. I think the other ones were, hold on, let me pull it up. The other ones were indie pop, indie rock, synth pop, and dance pop.
Wow.
I mean, again, it's like depends on which album you're talking about. But next one is which English city is mentioned the most frequently? One is, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, Katie, Loughton.
Loughton, yeah.
Loughton, okay. B, Manchester, or C, London.
Manchester.
You're correct. The other two were mentioned 4 times. Manchester mentioned 6 times. And then the last one is, which of your awards is mentioned first? Is it A, an International Dance Music Award, B, an MTV Video Music Award, C, a Brit Award, or D, a UK Festival Award?
MTV.
My favourite one's not even there.
Yeah, the favourite one's not even there. I haven't developed, but MTV, I think.
Yeah.
It is an MTV one, yes. But what's your favorite?
It's called the Ivor Novello Awards. It's like
yes.
which is like for your songwriting. And
Yeah.
so for us it meant the most because that's what we've put the most time into and the most like heart into. And it's weird, it got like album of the year and we didn't even go to get it because we didn't think we'd even register. And we won like the best award of the night. And found out and Jules was literally on the toilet. I was like, they just told us we were.
Sick stomach. I really had a bad week of it.
But that was a nice award because it was an acknowledgement of the writing side.
Nice. That's the show. That's the game. Thank you for playing, and I'm glad that you somewhat at least know your Wikipedia page.
There's Meadow. Do you want to say hello?
I come say hi.
Say hi, AJ. Do you like his wallpaper behind him?
Jackie's wallpaper behind him. That's cool, isn't it?
JJ.
Thank you so much, Katie and Jules, for joining me. Thank you to Noah for the theme music, and thank you to Chris for editing this episode. Make sure to rate and review us on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on right now. Bye, y'all.